You're listening to a production of the National Media Archive. To learn more or volunteer, go to nationalmediaarchive.com.
The Truman Show is one of those rare films that hits it out of the park, blending humor, pace, and detail into a perfect storm. But what really sets it apart is how it holds up as an eerie prophecy, especially 20 years later. It didn't just predict a future of surveillance and manufactured reality. It practically laid out a roadmap for it. And the best part? The more time goes on, the more its allegorical message rings true. But to get it, we need to dive into the heart of Truman's world. The movie opens with a monologue from Christof, the show's director, who explains the premise. Truman, the unwitting star of the show, is living in a bubble. He doesn't know it, but his entire life is broadcast on TV. Truman's world is a lie. He thinks he's just another guy living in a picturesque town on Sea Haven Island, but in reality, his entire existence is a carefully constructed set, surrounded by a giant dome. All the people he interacts with, the ones he thinks are his family, friends, and even his wife, are paid actors. Everything from the weather to the sun in the sky is controlled by Christof. As the film kicks off, we see Truman going about his morning routine, doing mundane tasks like saying hi to his neighbors and heading to work. But then, something odd happens. A stage light falls from the sky, narrowly missing him. Truman inspects it and finds the word Sirius on it, referring to the brightest star in the night sky. Later on, a news report conveniently talks about a plane wreckage, subtly tying it all together with the light drop. The station even starts to push the idea that flying is dangerous, using the wreckage as an example. This is one of many ways Christof uses subtle manipulation to keep Truman from leaving his manufactured world through fear. The manipulation doesn't stop there. Truman's boss sets him up to face his greatest fear, water. He's terrified of the ocean, thanks to a traumatic incident where he supposedly lost his father. Christof knows this, and he uses it to trap Truman. Later in the movie, when Truman expresses his desire to leave for Fiji, his best friend, Marlin, does everything he can to squash the idea. The cracks in Truman's reality are starting to show, and those around him are doing whatever it takes to keep him in line. Truman's wife, Maril, starts to act out of character, showing off a kitchen gadget like she's on a commercial. This only adds to Truman's suspicions. His mind begins to question everything, and the people around him start to feel like they're playing roles. Truman's suspicions grow even further when he has a conversation with Marlin. Marlin's a key player in keeping Truman from the truth, but the more Truman thinks about it, the less Marlin's reassurances make sense. Something's wrong. As Truman goes on, he tries to recall a significant event from his past. His memories of a traumatic boat accident that supposedly killed his father resurface. But as he pushes further, he begins to see more and more cracks in the illusion. Everyone around him is either an actor or a pawn in Christof's grand design. What keeps Truman locked into this false reality is the fear and the overwhelming sense of propaganda that seeps into every part of his life. Even the TV shows he watches and the people he talks to daily repeat the same positive affirmations, reinforcing the lie. Just like Truman, society today is bombarded with messages designed to keep us complacent and unaware of the bigger picture. In Truman's world, it's about believing in a false reality. But in the real world, it's about ignoring the signs of societal manipulation. Truman's story mirrors the one we're living right now. Society feeds us ideas about who we should be, what we should buy, and even what we should fear. We're conditioned to believe in things that may not be true. The moment we start questioning, we're branded as outliers. The delusion we live in is just like Truman's. He's the star of his own reality, but everyone else is playing their part in sustaining the lie. The Truman Show also brings to light the concept of habitus, a term used by sociologists to describe how society's rules and expectations shape our behavior. We're all influenced by this set of invisible norms, and the characters in the film act out this very concept. The actors, from Truman's best friend to his wife, are conditioned to perpetuate the illusion of Truman's reality. This is exactly how society works. People play their roles without questioning the bigger system they're part of. The Truman Show gives us a literal depiction of the habitus, a society built on false realities, where people blindly reinforce the delusion. But in Truman's world, cracks start to appear. As Truman wakes up to the lies that have shaped his life, the entire system begins to unravel. The more he questions, the more resistance he faces. And this is the key message of the film. When a society's foundational truths are built on lies, the system can only hold up for so long. We're starting to see this same unraveling today. The film's commentary on reality TV is one of the most striking aspects of its relevance. The way reality TV manipulates values and distorts what's real is something that's shaped our culture. And today, with the rise of social media, it's become even worse. Everyone's living in their own reality TV show, projecting fake lives to create unattainable standards. It's affecting mental health, particularly among younger generations. Studies have shown that teenage girls who spend more than 5 hours a day on social media experience a 50% increase in depression symptoms. Social media is reinforcing a fake reality, one where the habitus continues to drift farther away from authenticity. But the dangers aren't just about personal mental health. As we've seen in The Truman Show, the corporatization of society has permeated every level of life. Truman's wife, Meryl, becomes a spokesperson for products without even realizing it. She's so deep into the delusion that it's second nature for her to advertise, even though she's supposed to be Truman's partner in life. It's the same in our world, where corporate interests influence everything from our work lives to our personal values. Career and success are prioritized over personal well-being, and we're seeing the consequences of that now. Truman's suspicions continue to grow as he notices strange events, like seeing his presumed dead father back in town. His mother's attempt to explain it away doesn't convince him. He begins to piece together that something's wrong. Then, his mind goes back to a key moment from his past, a meeting with a woman named Lauren, who later tells him the truth about his world. She's a background character, but in a rare moment of rebellion, she breaks character and tries to warn Truman that everyone is pretending. The seeds of doubt grow in Truman's mind. He starts to question the people around him, his life, and the reality he's living in. Every strange thing he notices only further fuels his belief that something is wrong. The news starts reporting his every move, confirming his suspicions. Truman is on the edge of discovering the truth, and the whole system is in jeopardy. His desire to leave intensifies. He's determined to escape, to find the real world outside the dome. But Christoph will stop at nothing to keep him from breaking free. The lies that have kept Truman confined are starting to show their cracks. Truman's journey to freedom is both literal and symbolic. The walls around him are closing in, and the system is doing everything it can to keep him from breaking through. But his desire to escape is stronger than ever, and it's only a matter of time before he finds the truth. As Truman's quest for the truth intensifies, the cracks in the world around him become harder to ignore. The bizarre events keep stacking up, and he becomes more aware of the artificial nature of his reality. The people around him continue to play their roles, but Truman's doubts grow by the day. His wife, Meryl, keeps acting as though she's part of a commercial, constantly promoting products without even realizing it. She's stuck in the game, as much a prisoner of the false reality as Truman is, and the disconnect between their lives becomes increasingly obvious. The illusion begins to break down further when Truman remembers a past encounter with a woman named Lauren. Unlike the rest of the actors, she steps out of character and tries to warn Truman that his entire world is a lie. She tells him that everyone is pretending, and for a brief moment, Truman almost gets the truth. But she's quickly shut down by the system, with her father showing up to discredit her. Still, Truman doesn't forget what she said, and it stays with him as he digs deeper into his suspicions. It's when Truman's father reappears, supposedly dead for years, that the illusion really starts to crack. Truman is stunned to see him on the street, dressed as a beggar. His father is quickly whisked away in a bus, but Truman doesn't buy the explanation his mother gives him. It's another clue, one that confirms his growing fear. Nothing in his world is real. Truman begins to piece together the bizarre, staged nature of his life. His memories are being tampered with, and his emotions are being controlled by the invisible hand of Christoph, the director of the show. As Truman's doubts continue to grow, his desire to escape reaches a boiling point. He begins questioning his life with his wife, noticing that her conversations with him feel scripted and rehearsed. When he sees his wife acting like a spokesperson again, promoting a coffee brand as if it's the most important thing in the world, The absurdity hits him. He realizes that his life has been nothing more than a commercialized show. Every aspect of his existence has been controlled, and even the people closest to him are just playing parts. Truman's breaking point arrives when he starts to recall his college years. A flashback takes him back to a chance encounter with Lauren, the woman who tried to reveal the truth to him. The connection they shared was brief, but powerful. Truman remembers her face, and he even starts to recreate her features from old magazines, trying to hold on to a piece of reality in his fake world. He begins to fantasize about leaving, about finding the truth, and about Fiji, the place where Sylvia, or Lauren, is rumored to be moving. But the more he tries to get out, the more obstacles appear. Everything is set up to keep him in his cage. The propaganda continues. The media outlets around him feed him lies, even controlling the radio that plays in his car, describing his every move in detail. Every part of the background set starts to feel more obvious, and Truman realizes that he's been living in a fishbowl his entire life. Every time he tries to escape, the world around him becomes more and more impossible to navigate. It's as if the walls are closing in, and no matter what Truman does, someone or something is there to keep him from breaking free. In one of the film's most intense scenes, Truman tries to leave Sea Haven Island by boat, but his fear of water holds him back. The phobia, a product of the trauma he's been conditioned to believe, is his biggest obstacle. Christoph, knowing Truman's fears all too well, uses them to trap him. Truman tries to push through, but the very thing holding him back, his fear, seems too powerful to overcome. But Truman isn't ready to give up. With sheer determination, he finds the strength to face his fears and get into the boat, despite the overwhelming propaganda that's been embedded in his mind. He's pushing against everything that's been programmed into him, and in that moment, the facade starts to crack. His journey becomes more than just about escaping. It's about reclaiming his life and his autonomy. The system fights back hard. Christoph's manipulation goes into overdrive. A series of absurd emergencies are staged to keep Truman in check, from wildfires to power plant leaks. Everything is set up to stop Truman, to make him believe that the world outside his reality is just too dangerous to escape to. But Truman is undeterred. He sees through the smoke and mirrors, and it only strengthens his resolve to leave the fabricated world that's been built around him. At one point, Truman finds himself at a roadblock, surrounded by artificial obstacles that seem too perfect to be real. It's as if the entire universe is conspiring against him. Yet, Truman persists. He pushes through, trying to break free from the mundane existence he's been forced to live. The more he fights, the more the show seems to fight back, as if everyone around him is a cog in a machine meant to keep him in place. In the end, it's his desire for the truth that ultimately drives him forward. The obstacles continue to mount, but Truman remains focused on the only thing that matters: breaking free from the chains of his artificial world. His journey to freedom becomes a battle of wills as he fights to escape the fabricated life he's been handed. The closer he gets to the truth, the more resistance he faces. But Truman knows that there's no turning back now. The question is no longer whether Truman can escape, but what happens when he does. As the walls close in around him, Truman's courage is tested like never before. And with each passing moment, the tension rises. The artificial world that Christoph has built is beginning to collapse, and Truman is ready to take his place as the one person who can break free from the illusion. Truman's journey has escalated. The tension is palpable. The more he questions, the more the system around him pushes back. The world he thought was real is disintegrating. His once cozy, predictable life is now crumbling. Each new step Truman takes toward uncovering the truth only seems to unravel the tight grip Christoph has on his world. By now, Truman is determined. He's learned to trust his instincts over the carefully constructed narrative everyone around him is trying to sell. He realizes that every part of his life, his relationships, his memories, his surroundings, has been manipulated and controlled by a single man, Christoph. The fact that Truman is beginning to see through the illusion is a problem for Christoph, and it leads to some intense moments. As Truman's doubts mount, Christoph escalates his efforts to stop him from breaking free, employing every trick in the book to keep Truman locked in his fake world. One of the most important turning points comes when Truman decides to take matters into his own hands and visit the travel agency. At this point, he's exhausted by the endless lies, the propaganda, and the manipulated reality around him. He's tired of hearing about the dangers of flying and how everything is designed to keep him within the confines of Sea Haven Island. So, he tries to book a flight to Fiji, the place where he believes the only real connection he ever had exists: Sylvia, the woman who briefly opened his eyes to the truth. But of course, the clerk at the travel agency tells him that all flights are booked for the next month. Another attempt at control. Frustrated but not deterred, Truman decides to take a more drastic step. He attempts to leave by bus, but the moment he steps foot on the bus, it conveniently breaks down. The system is doing everything it can to stop him from leaving. The more Truman pushes back, the more the world around him seems to fold in on itself, until the very fabric of his reality begins to show itself for what it truly is: nothing more than an illusion. Determined, Truman locks himself in his car with Marill, his wife, and begins a spontaneous road trip. To the outside observer, it looks like a man who's losing it, having a breakdown. But Truman isn't losing his mind, he's breaking free. The fake society, the fake people, the fake world around him, they all exist to keep him in place. He's no longer going to play along. But even when he takes control of the situation, the system fights back. The traffic jam he causes vanishes the moment Truman pretends to go back home, only for him to then veer away and head toward the bridge that separates him from freedom. At the bridge, Truman faces his greatest obstacle: his intense, conditioned fear of water. Christoph knows Truman's greatest weakness, and he's ready to use it. Truman's fear of the ocean is tied to a traumatic event in his childhood, the death of his father, which, as he later learns, was orchestrated by Christoph to reinforce his phobia. Truman, however, is resolute. As he faces the bridge, he has to confront the most deeply ingrained fear that's been implanted in him. But despite everything, he finds the strength to push past it. By closing his eyes and forcing Marill to drive, he manages to cross the bridge, overcoming the phobia that has kept him imprisoned for decades. But just as Truman is about to escape, the system throws more obstacles in his path. Christoph orchestrates a series of emergency events: a wildfire, a power plant leak, whatever it takes to keep Truman from leaving. Truman fights back against each one, but no matter how hard he tries, he's met with an unrelenting wall of resistance. Even when he attempts to walk through a roadblock on foot, he's tackled by men in hazmat suits, sent back to his false home, and forced to confront the reality that the world he's been living in has been a lie all along. As Truman's journey becomes more intense, the parallels with our own society become striking. The events in Truman's world seem implausible, ridiculous even. The manufactured emergencies, the constant manipulation, it feels unreal. But in our world, we see similar things happening: the endless waves of propaganda, the media controlling the narrative, the politicians and corporations perpetuating false realities to keep us complacent. Truman's story is an allegory for the world we live in today. We're bombarded with distractions, with lies, with manufactured crises, events that keep us from seeing the truth, from understanding the real problems that affect our society. Truman's refusal to back down from the truth is what sets him apart. Despite the odds, despite the constant pressure to conform, he refuses to accept the lie that has defined his life. His willingness to confront his fears head-on is what makes his journey so powerful. Every obstacle that Christoph puts in his way only strengthens Truman's resolve. The more resistance he faces, the more determined he becomes to break free. Eventually, Truman finds himself on the cusp of freedom, yet the system tries to stop him again. He is met with a violent storm created by Christoph, who is desperate to keep Truman from escaping. But Truman doesn't give up. He endures the storm, pushing through the chaos, and continues on his path toward freedom. As the storm rages, Truman shouts to the sky, taunting Christoph, "Is this the best you've got?" He refuses to let fear control him, even as the storm intensifies. In the end, the storm subsides, and Truman regains consciousness. His will to break free, to find the truth, has triumphed over the manipulations of Christoph. The storm metaphorically represents the external forces trying to keep Truman locked in place. But Truman's determination is stronger than the storm. As the skies clear, so does his path to the truth. The only thing left standing between Truman and the truth is the set itself. The walls, the dome, the carefully constructed universe around him, all of it is crumbling. Truman's journey toward freedom is more than just a physical escape. It's a reclamation of his autonomy, of his identity, and of his truth. He begins to tear down the walls, both literal and figurative, that have been built around him. The moment he breaks through the artificial sky and sees the ramp leading him out of the set is the climax of his journey. And when Truman finally opens the door marked Exit, it's not just a door, it's the key to reclaiming his life, his freedom, and his sense of self. Christoph, in a final attempt to keep Truman from leaving, tries to convince him that the world outside is worse, that ignorance is bliss. But Truman, having spent his entire life trapped in a false reality, knows better. His impulse to find what's real is stronger than the comfort of living in a manufactured world. As Truman steps through the door, he looks up at the camera and delivers his iconic final words: "Good afternoon, good evening, and good night." These words signify his acknowledgement of the reality that has been forced upon him, but also his final farewell to it. He's stepping out into the unknown, rejecting the false reality that's been his cage for so long. The entire world is watching, and Truman's defiance signals a massive shift. He's no longer a pawn in a game. He's the one who's in control. As he exits the set, he is reclaiming his life and his truth, breaking free from the system that has controlled him for so long. It's a powerful moment that reflects the universal desire for freedom, authenticity, and truth. Truman's departure from the show symbolizes the collapse of the illusion that has kept him confined. As Truman steps out of the artificial world, the movie's impact isn't just on Truman's life, but on our own reality as well. The Truman Show, a film about a man escaping a fabricated existence, highlights how deeply ingrained falsehoods have shaped our world, and how breaking free from them isn't just about physical escape. It's a shift in consciousness. Truman's final departure from the show signifies the moment when the truth can no longer be contained by the lies. The walls of the set come down, and Truman is free to face the world as it truly is. But even as Truman steps into the unknown, the real world doesn't feel any less controlled. The question that looms large is, where does society go from here? Truman's rebellion mirrors the way many are beginning to wake up to the structures that have kept them locked in. Society, much like Truman's world, is full of manufactured realities, ones that are built and maintained by the media, corporations, and systems of power. The world Truman steps into isn't necessarily a better place, but it's real. And in this pursuit of reality, Truman has managed to break free from a system designed to keep him in a loop of ignorance. The metaphor of Truman's escape is larger than one individual's journey. It speaks to a broader cultural awakening. For so long, society has been manipulated into accepting certain false narratives, whether it's through media control, social expectations, or economic structures. People are conditioned to believe in a reality that may not actually exist. Truman's escape from the false world is symbolic of the personal awakening that is happening in the real world. As more individuals begin to question the narratives they've been taught, the more the cracks in the system appear. As Truman sails away from the set, it's not just his physical journey that matters, it's his personal transformation. The storm Christoph creates to stop him is a powerful metaphor for the external forces that try to suppress any attempt to challenge the status quo. In Truman's case, these forces are the manipulations of a media-driven society that thrives on maintaining control. Christoph uses every weapon in his arsenal, weather manipulation, false emergencies, the threat of violence, to try to hold Truman back. But Truman's internal drive for the truth overpowers it all. His breakthrough isn't just about escaping a set, it's about breaking free from the systems that control us all. In the real world, these manipulations are not as obvious, but they're just as potent. Look at how media creates narratives, shaping public opinion and distorting reality to fit certain agendas. Just as Truman was fed a carefully constructed version of life, we too are often told what to believe, who to trust, and what to fear. The overwhelming influence of corporate media, advertising, and social media has created a kind of false reality where people are often more concerned with how they're perceived by others than with what's real. Truman's refusal to buy into the lie echoes the growing discontent many feel with the artificial constructs around them. As Truman finally breaks through the barrier and exits the set, his declaration of freedom isn't just personal, it's a societal statement. It challenges us all to question the artificial walls that confine us. This symbolic exit from a false reality is the crux of the movie's message. When we stop playing along with the lie, the system itself begins to collapse. Truman may have stepped out of his show, but the metaphorical walls we live behind are still very much intact. The question becomes, are we ready to step out? The shift that Truman experiences is a powerful one. It represents the desire for authenticity in a world built on distractions, consumption, and shallow ideals. As Truman begins to realize that everything around him is a lie, he starts to reclaim his sense of self. His journey isn't just about escaping physical barriers. It's about recovering the truth of who he really is, outside the manipulation of those who created his life. It's a process of rediscovery, of shedding the layers of illusion that have obscured his sense of reality. The rise of social media in our world today only amplifies Truman's struggle. Everyone seems to be creating their own reality online, projecting an image of themselves that is carefully curated to meet the standards set by others. The rise of influencers and the ever-present advertisements, all vying for attention, contribute to a sense of detachment from what's real. In this age of hyperreality, where everything is about image and perception, Truman's story serves as a cautionary tale about the dangers of being trapped in a false reality. What Truman's journey ultimately reveals is that the false worlds we live in don't just control our actions, they shape our very identities. As Truman steps into the unknown, he leaves behind a fabricated version of himself. The Truman Show's commentary on identity is crucial here. For Truman, and for society at large, the process of finding the truth is not just about escaping a physical set. It's about unraveling the false constructs that have been placed on our identities. Truman has been given an identity that isn't his own. It's been crafted for him by forces beyond his control. As he steps out into the real world, he is reclaiming his autonomy and his identity. This notion of reclaiming one's identity in a world filled with manufactured ideas is central to the film's message. Truman's journey represents a rejection of the idea that we are defined by the systems around us. Just as Truman takes back control of his life, the viewers of the show, both within the fictional universe and outside of it, are forced to confront their own complicity in sustaining this system. The film challenges the audience to examine their own role in perpetuating societal illusions and to consider whether they're living their own truth or merely accepting the narratives pushed upon them. The Truman Show's examination of corporatization also serves as a stark reminder of the dangers of consumer culture. Truman's life is constantly interrupted by commercial advertisements, even in moments of personal crisis. Merrill's robotic product pitches are a direct commentary on how advertising infiltrates every aspect of our lives. The characters in Truman's world, like the rest of us, have become so submerged in the show's commercial framework that they no longer know how to live without selling something. It's a reflection of our own world, where corporate values have infiltrated almost every aspect of society, from the way we work to the way we interact with each other. In the film, Truman's escape becomes an act of rebellion. The way he exposes the lie by simply refusing to participate in it mirrors the rising tide of dissatisfaction with societal structures. Across the globe, we're seeing younger generations rejecting traditional career paths, embracing alternative lifestyles, and questioning everything they've been told about success and fulfillment. The idea of dropping out of the system is becoming increasingly attractive as the cracks in the traditional model begin to show. Truman's decision to leave the fabricated world behind is a rejection of the values that have been imposed upon him, values that are inextricably linked to consumerism and control. His journey is one of liberation, and it's something that resonates deeply in a world that's increasingly driven by corporate interests. The story of Truman's escape from the artificial world of The Truman Show becomes more than just a personal rebellion. It's a challenge to the very systems of control that structure our lives. Truman's desire for authenticity isn't merely a reaction to being trapped. It's a powerful statement against the forces that shaped him and have shaped many of us. Truman's life, carefully curated by Christof and his team, is a mirror of the societal forces that attempt to shape us all. From consumer culture to media manipulation, the world Truman inhabits is one where every element is controlled to maintain the illusion of normalcy. This idea is amplified by Truman's gradual realization that the world around him isn't real. The foundation of his life is a lie, and as he uncovers this, the system begins to unravel. The control that Christof exerts over Truman's life begins to falter as Truman wakes up to the truth. And it's here that the movie's commentary on reality starts to ring even louder in the real world. The more Truman refuses to accept the lies, the more resistance he faces. The world around him tries to push him back into his cage, but Truman's persistence is unmatched. Christoph, aware that Truman is on the verge of breaking free, does everything in his power to stop him. One of the most striking methods is the violent storm that Christoph sends to trap Truman on his boat. The storm is an external manifestation of the oppressive forces that try to silence dissent and stop change. The storm rages on, battering Truman's boat, but his resolve is stronger than ever. He doesn't give up. In fact, he taunts the storm, shouting into the sky, daring Christoph to bring more. His defiance is unwavering. But what's significant about this storm is how it mirrors the obstacles society places in the way of anyone challenging the status quo. Just as Truman must fight against the storm, people who seek change often face overwhelming pressure. Whether it's systemic issues, cultural norms, or entrenched economic forces, the push for authenticity and truth comes with immense resistance. However, Truman's survival of the storm, his ability to endure even the most extreme attempts at controlling him, is symbolic of the strength individuals have when they refuse to accept the false narratives imposed upon them. At the climax of Truman's journey, when he drives his boat into the edge of the set and the sky itself cracks open, the metaphor is crystal clear. The barriers, both physical and ideological, that confine us are not as solid as they seem. Truman's escape is more than just his physical departure. It's a symbolic rejection of the world built on lies. The moment when Truman punches through the set's fabricated sky marks his ultimate triumph over the artificial world he's lived in for so long. The world around him, meticulously constructed, is nothing but a facade. As Truman breaks through that barrier, he's breaking through the walls that society has built around truth. But Truman's journey doesn't end there. After crossing the threshold and stepping through the exit door, Truman is met with an overwhelming choice: to live in the world he's been given, or to face the unknown. The exit door he walks through is more than just a literal passage. It represents the chance to reclaim his autonomy, to finally experience the real world on his terms. Christoph, unable to let go of his creation, tries to persuade Truman to stay, arguing that life in the real world is dangerous and uncertain. But Truman, after decades of being trapped in an artificial world, knows that nothing could be worse than living in a constructed lie. His desire for truth, no matter how uncertain, drives him forward. Christoph's insistence that Truman's reality is the better option reflects the fundamental resistance many face when questioning societal norms. The comforts of the known, no matter how false, are easier to accept than the unpredictable nature of the unknown. Christoph, speaking as though he's the puppet master in control of Truman's life, tries to convince Truman that ignorance is bliss, that the world beyond the dome is full of nothing but risk and danger. But Truman rejects this. In the same way, people in our world are often convinced that the systems of power and control are the best options, even though they are riddled with lies. Truman's defiance against Christoph's temptation to stay is a powerful statement of autonomy and the desire for authenticity. As Truman looks into the camera and delivers his final words, "Good afternoon, good evening, and good night," he is making a conscious break from the world that has confined him. These words aren't just a formality. They signify his rejection of the false reality that has dictated his life. His final farewell to the camera is a moment of ultimate freedom. By leaving the show, Truman doesn't just escape his physical prison. He steps into the realm of the unknown, rejecting everything that has kept him shackled to a life of illusion. Truman's farewell, however, isn't just a personal victory. It's a cultural one. It speaks to the larger societal structures that attempt to keep people in line, to suppress their desires for authenticity and truth. The world Truman leaves behind is one where everything is controlled, manipulated, and packaged for consumption. The world he steps into is uncertain, but it's real. And in that uncertainty, Truman finds his freedom. This moment of defiance is a direct challenge to the way society has constructed our lives. The barriers that confine us, whether they're social norms, media narratives, or economic pressures, are not as strong as we think. Truman proves that by simply refusing to accept them, we can break free. This climactic moment is deeply relevant today. In a world where the boundaries between reality and illusion have become increasingly blurred by media and technology, Truman's escape represents the universal struggle for truth in an age of manipulation. The rise of social media, the corporate control of narratives, and the corporate-driven realities of today are all part of a broader system that tries to dictate how we think, feel, and behave. Truman's journey mirrors the journey many people today are on, trying to break free from the control systems that define modern life. The Truman Show doesn't just tell us the story of one man's escape from a false world. It challenges us to question the world around us. Just like Truman, we are all living in a world shaped by external forces, be it the media, politics, or corporate interests. The movie doesn't just ask if Truman can escape. It asks whether we can escape our own limitations. The walls are not as solid as they seem. The storm will pass, and the exit door will always be there for those who choose to walk through it. It's up to each of us to decide whether we will break through the illusion and step into a world that's real, even if it's uncertain. The Truman Show is ultimately about more than Truman's journey from confinement to freedom. It's about the wider cultural, societal, and personal awakening that the film encourages. As Truman breaks free from the elaborate set built around him, it's not just a win for him. It's a signal to all of us that there are walls in our world too, walls we may not even realize are there. These barriers, whether they're made of media manipulation, social pressures, or economic systems, are what keep us from living in a world of truth. Truman's story is a powerful allegory for the ways in which the world around us is structured to make us conform, to make us believe in illusions. But as Truman breaks free, we're reminded that it's possible to escape the cages, both literal and metaphorical, that confine us. In the final moments of the film, Truman's choice to leave his fabricated world behind is a profound statement of defiance. As Christoph, the director, tries to stop him, pleading with him to stay in his perfect controlled world, Truman rejects the illusion. It's here that the movie's themes of authenticity, control, and personal freedom come to a head. Truman's rejection of the life that was designed for him is a rejection of the larger system at play, the system that has conditioned him, and by extension all of us, to believe in the reality that has been given to us. Truman's ability to walk out the door and choose his own path is a metaphor for anyone who dares to challenge the constructed world around them. But it's not just a personal rebellion. Truman's escape represents a broader cultural shift that we're beginning to see in the real world. We live in a time when more and more people are waking up to the fact that the systems in place are not as benevolent or natural as they seem. The rise of social media, corporate control over every aspect of our lives, and the dominance of reality TV culture have blurred the lines between real and fake, just as The Truman Show depicted. The movie forces us to question, how much of our reality is manufactured? How much of what we believe is shaped by the systems that control us? In many ways, Truman's world mirrors the corporate-driven, media-saturated reality we live in today. Our lives are increasingly shaped by what's shown to us through screens. Whether it's the curated images on social media, the endless advertisements that influence our choices, or the news channels that tell us what to think, we are bombarded by messages designed to control us. We, too, live in a kind of reality show, one where the boundaries of truth and fiction are constantly blurred. Truman's story is a warning. When we allow external forces to dictate our lives and perceptions, we lose sight of what's real. The film shows that when people are told who they are, what they should want, and what they should fear, the system can maintain its hold for as long as they comply. But like Truman, more and more people are waking up. The walls around Truman's world were reinforced by the false narratives he was fed, but they weren't permanent. As Truman questions everything, the whole system collapses, and the illusion is exposed. In our own world, we see the same cracks beginning to appear. The growing distrust of the media, the rise of alternative news sources, and the increasing rejection of mainstream narratives are all signs that the control systems we live under are losing their grip. People are beginning to question the lies they've been told, and in doing so, they are starting to take back control of their lives and their identities. Just as